Gary Community School Corporation is taking what some call drastic measures to shore up a $23 million budget deficit for next school year. On Tuesday, members of the Gary School Board voted 4-2 in favor of closing 6 of the district's schools. Board members offered comments on both sides of the issue. The 2 dissenting board members say that the decision was not properly vetted and the district could still have other options. Board member Nellie Moore told attendees the reality of the city's declining population and tax base made the closings necessary. Current enrollment in the Gary school system is around 7,000 students. Superintendent Cheryl Pruitt says the decision to close 6 schools instead of the 5 originally proposed will help to improve the school district's accountability score with the state. 5 of the schools have received multiple failing grades from the Department of Education.
This plan will allow for no longer 9 schools to be failing, but we will be down to 3. We will continue to have a blue ribbon school. We will have 2 A buildings. We will have a couple of C graded buildings and about 4 D buildings. So this is a plan not only to make certain that our revenue is where it needs to be, but also that the academic achievement that is in the buildings is also of standard.
Pruitt says a transition committee is already in the works and will include representatives from the schools, teachers union, and community. Indiana Senator Dan Coates says a new EPA proposal will damage Indiana's economic well-being and put its power grid reliability at risk. This week, the EPA unveiled its Clean Power Plant proposal, a sweeping initiative to cut carbon emissions from existing power plants. The move is touted by the White House as one that will mean a cleaner, more efficient power sector in Indiana and across the country. The EPA says its plan will cut carbon pollution up to 30% by the year 2030. However, 41 senators, including Senator Dan Coates, says that the Clean Power Plant proposal will result in significant electricity rate increases and inevitably higher energy costs for consumers. In a letter to the White House, the lawmakers also questioned the EPA's legal authority to impose the stricter regulations. This week, the Westville Correctional Facility held its annual disaster training drill, bringing dozens of first responders to the prison for an imaginary safety threat. The scenario for this year's annual disaster drill involved a suspicious package at the main gate. The item was flagged by security and 3 pretend suspects fled and crashed near the prison's parking lot. The Porter County Regional Bomb Squad neutralized the explosive device while police, firefighters, and paramedics attended to the injured suspects. Following the event, all responding parties met to discuss ways to improve response procedures.
We have a lot of resources to deal with many things inside the facility ourselves, but there's many times when we need outside resources. Trying to communicate what we do with things like the sheriff's department, the local police departments, the fire departments, and getting all that communication between all those agencies that have lots of different protocols is critical to develop an appropriate response.
Safety and response protocols developed during the drills are also shared with other detention centers across the state. Indiana State Senator Joe Donnelly wants to sit down with the nation's top Veterans Affairs leader. It's a request he penned in a letter to the Department of Veterans Affairs this week after news reports surfaced in May that wait times for patients at a VA clinic in Arizona were life-threateningly long. VA Secretary of Affairs Eric Shinzeki resigned in May after a report from the VA's Office of Inspector General found problems with delayed care and off-the-books waiting lists in VA clinics across the country. Steve Walsh spoke to the senator about his demand for answers and the well-being of Hoosier veterans.
U.S. Senator Joe Donnelly has been in the news recently. His first bill to help prevent military suicide was just made part of the Defense Authorization Act. He, along with Senator Coates, is also requesting a sit-down with the acting head of the VA to address national concerns over long wait times at the VA. Senator, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me with you.
So originally you sent a letter to the VA saying that you wanted answers to see whether or not these long wait times were happening in Indiana, and now you're requesting an actual face-to-face meeting. Are you not getting answers from the VA?
Well, we have not heard back yet. We sent the letter to General Shinseki, and obviously he's no longer there. Senator Coates and I have not heard back, and so we want a face-to-face meeting. But what I've done in the meantime is I've personally gone out and started visiting all of our, I visited all of our veterans places on a constant basis, but just in the last week I went to the Northern Indiana Region Director's location. I've gone down to Indianapolis as well to check through wait times, to check through records, to check through all these things to make sure that Indiana's veterans are being properly cared for.
And what are you hearing from veterans? Are you seeing evidence that some of these long lines? Because we've had vets on the radio, and yeah, there are some long wait times out there.
There are some long wait times, and we're trying to knock them down right now. What we've seen is that some of the wait times in Indiana are not at 14 days. They've extended out longer. But what we have not seen at all is there has been no manipulation of any of the wait times or any of the records. We've been fortunate so far that everything that's been there has been reflective of exactly how it is. And we have to be able to make sure that we can get our veterans through the system quicker. The care that's being given is very, very solid care. Our veterans are very positive on the care that they receive, but it's just the bureaucracy of being able to get the appointment that's been the difficulty.
We had a retired Army officer on who said the solution is to open up the system, make it more like Medicaid. You can go to any doctor you want rather than wait for a VA doctor. Do you think that is part of the solution?
You know, that can certainly be part of the solution. I have no objection to that. For a long time, though, the veterans have taken great ownership and great pride in the VA healthcare system. And so for our veterans, it is something where they have specialty needs like PTSD, being able to get certain other things like Agent Orange related issues, that we have specialties in the veterans health system that we are probably better at than anybody in the world at trying to help solve these problems. So I don't have any difficulty with having the system also reflect that if somebody wants to go to a private doctor, that they can do so.
Your first bill to help prevent military suicide, named after Jason Sexton, who was a National Guard member who committed suicide back in 2009. That's now part of the Defense Authorization Act. It seems very likely to pass. Do you think the military has a better handle now on suicide?
Well, we're certainly working to make sure that they do. They are aware of how important this is, how critical an issue this is. For instance, Steve, just in 2013, we lost 118 young men and women to combat, and we lost 470 young men and women to suicide, and that is both in theater and back home as well. So 4 times the rate of soldiers lost in combat that we lost in suicide. So they know how important this is, and what our bill does is it makes sure that every member of the military, whether active duty or guard or reserve, is able to get an individual mental health screening each year, and that it be kept completely private so that they're comfortable to go get it, that they are not concerned about whether or not it's going to affect their ability to be promoted or to be able to stay in the military. So we're trying to make it so that the services are readily available.
And Senator, I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Senator Joe Donnelly, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Following Senator Donnelly's inquiry about long wait times at Indiana clinics, the Department of Veterans Affairs this week confirmed 8 veterans have waited more than 90 days to see a doctor at a VA facility in Evansville, Indiana. In an issue VA officials are calling systemic throughout the VHA, we questioned how long Hoosier veterans wait while seeking services in the region. It was an unexpected call, but not an unwelcome one.
Right before you contacted me, I received a call. Now, normally I would never receive a call, never receive a call to tell me that, hey, we are overbooked. Is it possible for us to reschedule your appointment for a later date?
A May 19th call from a scheduler at the Veteran Administration's Adam Benjamin Outpatient Center in Crown Point shook up the regular routine 40-year-old veteran Devon Edwards says he expects when booking appointments.
We're overbooked. This is the #1 response I get. And they know this is a frustration with many veterans. Many veterans are frustrated with the overbooking.
Oh, that's a surprise to me. Veterans from this clinic?
Yeah.
Okay. I would have to see the circumstances. That's unusual. I'm I'm surprised to hear that, actually.
Clinic Director Jill Carley says she is unaware of extended wait times at Adam Benjamin for the 13,500 veterans who are served at the primary care facility, an outpatient center for Chicago's Jesse Brown VA Medical Center. Carley says each new patient is seen within 14 days.
At the Adam Benjamin Jr. VA Outpatient Clinic, we have no patients who are waiting longer than 14 days. All new patients are seen within 14 days, and we do not have any wait list here at this clinic. And we don't anticipate any problems with that because we do have enough staff, and it's not a problem at this clinic.
But one fact seems unanimous from the VA. Delays in care for veterans are universal, system-wide. This from a May 28th report from the VA Office of Inspector General that found, quote, inappropriate scheduling practices are systemic throughout the VHA.
Do you think that that's the case at this facility, or because they're saying systemically it's an issue?
Yeah, it would be inappropriate to comment about that, but at this clinic it is not an issue and it is not a problem.
Edwards says long wait times for even routine services are a given. He says he waited more than a year starting in 2013 to book a dentist appointment at Adam Benjamin.
I was like, yo, I'm trying to get this appointment. And it's like, man, it's like I'm waiting 30, 60, 90 days for an appointment. And I was like, are we that busy? I was like, well, why do I have to go through so much through the VA system? I joined prior to me graduating.
The Cherville-based veteran spent 17 years serving across 3 branches of the military.
I loved serving my country. That would be me right here. That's your boy.
His daily health battle with lupus and kidney disease are reminders of the only reason Edwards quit, a medical retirement. After his conditions were declared as 100% service-related, he started attending Adam Benjamin in 2008. After his scheduled appointment for the dentist was delayed, he sought help from the clinic's patient advocate, a position Carley says is a check and balance for VA violations like long wait times.
I told this to the patient, the rep, and she called on the phone, and the person I had an issue with, which really wasn't with her, it was just with the scheduling system.
A new appointment was set and met, but Edwards says the latest call he received was the result of VA audits nationwide, which have found inappropriate scheduling practices are used to hide long wait times for thousands of veterans, including at one facility in southern Indiana. In a statement, VA Public Affairs Officer Kevin Harris says there were no major findings from recent face-to-face audits at Adam Benjamin.
It's a short film that I wrote about post-traumatic stress disorder.
These days, Edwards uses his military memories to fuel inspiration for his new career. As the owner of Inspire Films production company, he says he's willing to speak up about his clinic experiences so other veterans will benefit.
And there are a lot of service members out there, servicemen and women, who love serving their country. If people who worked for these federal institutions that provide services for veterans who love to serve their country just took enough pride and sensitivity and passion behind their work, I don't think we will have many of these problems.
There is a hotline number to report suspected wrongdoing in VA clinics, 1-800-488-8244. We'd also like to hear about your experiences with the VA on Twitter at Lakeshore Report or via email at news@lakeshorepublicmedia.org.
For many Lake County residents, the Lake Michigan shoreline is synonymous with industry, but automation and a changing business climate have reduced the footprint of some shoreline industries, leaving room for new development. This week, Lakeshore Report takes you to East Chicago, where leaders say soon everyone will be talking about the region's new harbor district.
Indiana Congressman Pete Visclosky has a vision for the Lake Michigan shoreline, and it's certainly not a new idea.
I first talked about the Marquette Plan and recapturing the lake in June of 1985. That is almost 30 years ago.
The Marquette Plan centers around reclaiming 75% of the lakefront for public use, no small task in an area dominated by industry. But officials say local businesses also realize the value of the lakefront as a regional commodity.
The industry has been very willing to talk to cities, ourselves, as far as properties. They do not need to make steel. All of us want this industry to be successful and make as much steel as possible. But for those other areas to open it up and again to have renewed economic activity, we're much closer to that than farther away now.
The congressman says decades of planning, funding, and cooperation are now visible along the shoreline.
So you're going to see the grand opening of the Lakeshore in Whiting, Indiana. You have a former industrial site in Portage today that is now 63 acres open on Lake Michigan.
East Chicago Mayor Anthony Copeland says his city is now in a position to fully join in the effort.
When I first came in mayor, the city was $15 million in debt. You can have all kind of visions and your dreams become nightmare if you do not get your financial house in order. We've done that.
The mayor has been very aggressive in weaning the city off of some of the investment dollars that have been used for operation and maintenance to make sure that they can now invest in the future of the city.
East Chicago officials have already begun work on a 5-year action agenda, which incorporates lakefront development with an updated downtown cityscape.
Right now, we're working in the Main and Broadway area. It's a T area that we're focusing on. I would say between now and the next 2 years, you'll probably see upwards about $30 to $40 million invested in that area alone. And then in a concentric fashion, you're going to see it spread out throughout the city.
Both Copeland and Visclosky believe that once the beaches, parks, shops, and restaurants are in place, residents and visitors will share in the vision of Lake Michigan's South Shore as a recreation hotspot.
You see it coming down from Chicago, then you see it Whiting, then you see East Chicago, Gary. Everybody is buying into restoring the lakefront. It's probably the greatest investment that we will make in the future for our children.
Work along Main Street is expected to finish up by the end of this year. Up next, John Kane has details on a family-friendly event designed to celebrate the princess in your life in this week's Eye on the Arts.
Hi, joining me for this edition of Eye on the Arts is Melinda Kane, who is with the Center for Visual and Performing Arts, where I work in Munster, Indiana. And Melinda, you have been kind of running the center for us, all of us tenants, for a number of years now, and bringing new life to it after, this is going to be our 25th anniversary this year.
Yes, that's right.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So you invented the Family Arts Festival 3 years ago.
Well, the idea behind it was really to give an opportunity for the arts organizations within the Center for the Visual Performing Arts an opportunity to showcase what they do and give back to the community, and really to allow the families to participate and experience the arts, from the magic of live theater to creating their own artwork, even creating their own music. It's all under one roof there.
Yeah, there we are. So what is every year there's been a theme for the Family Arts Festival. What is it this year? Something about a princess.
The Princess Show.
The Princess Show.
The Princess Show. So we have a performance in the theater at 11, 1, and 3 of the Princess Show. And you can come, your kids can come dressed up like little princesses. After the show, they'll be able to go on stage with the other princesses to a dance party. And then they can go downstairs to the South Shore Arts and do some princess crafts and artwork, and enjoy a whole day really of the arts.
And I understand there's going to be some new activity this year. What's that?
Well, it was actually new last year, but we're happy to have the Northwest Indiana Symphony and Quinlan Fabish back with the musical playground. And it's in the Symphony's rehearsal hall. It's a playground of musical instruments, so the kids can try out all different types of musical instruments. And there's been some wonderful stories of kids who've tried out instruments last year that are playing them this year.
Yeah. Oh, good.
So
well,
that's really
wonderful.
been fun.
So June 22nd, it's free for most of the activities, and there's a cost for the show, right?
The show is $7.50 for kids, $9.50 for adults, but essentially the rest of the activities are free.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here to tell us about it.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Eye on the Arts.
There's a place in Valparaiso that's making beer drinkers in the Lakeshore region and beyond very, very happy. This week we sampled the beer and the brewing at Figure 8. Today we're going from grain to glass at Figure 8 Brewing in beautiful downtown Valparaiso, Indiana, as we jump in the lake. What exactly are we making?
This is what's called Railcat Ale, which is a beer we're doing for the Gary Railcats.
Now there's nothing in here right now except the malt and the water, correct?
Yes. Throughout the process, the other things we'll add will be hops and then yeast. So what I'm brewing is called a 7-barrel batch, and a barrel is 31 gallons.
Okay.
And we're gonna close this up for 45 minutes then. So what's happening is we're adding water from there, and it gradually dilutes it down to the amount we want, and also gets us the amount of liquid we want to create the beer. We're taking the wort from the mash tun, drawing it into the kettle. We're gonna get around 240, maybe 250 gallons out of this, and then when we boil off about 20 gallons throughout the process. So these are the hops, what they come in looking like. They look like rabbit pellets. Each hop variety will add its own little unique character to the beer. Go ahead, 211. All right, 1055. All right, so now we get to start shoveling. There you go. Just push it towards the door. That's all you have to do, so Dave can grab it with the hose.
We've shoveled the mash out. We're going to call the farmer so he can come and bring it to his cows. And more importantly, we're going to go upstairs to a conference room and sample some of what we've been working on.
All right, now we're to the fun part of the job, the tasting.
Okay.
So we're going to start out. We have all of our beers that are currently on tap. So this is Railcat Pale Ale. Pretty light, but a lot of hops, a lot of flavor. You get the citrusy to it.
Yeah, you're right, it's light, it's very refreshing. To see more of our trip to Figure 8 Brewing, go to our website at lakeshorepublicmedia.org. And a special thanks to Mike and the gang out there. They were so accommodating. They really took us through the whole process, and it was fascinating.
Yeah, they
I
seemed
learned a
so
lot.
knowledgeable.
I got to actually participate in a whole brew pretty much, and of course taste the results at the end. And I tasted a lot of results at the end, by the way, all absolutely delicious. So what are we working on for next week, guys?
Well, I've been talking with NIPSCO. They are extending some of their energy efficiency programs that are set to expire at the end of the year due to some changes in legislation, but they've made a choice to continue those programs, and we want to make sure that people know those are still available.
Most people think of that only for the winter months or somewhere where it's cold, but energy is always
important.
Right, exactly. And it's a constant expense of consumers. It's just something to remember that you can't think about it just when you're going into the winter season. And we would like to invite you to give us some viewer response and viewer feedback for any of the stories that we talked about today, or if you yourself have a story idea or an opinion, we'd very much like to hear from you.
You can send your thoughts, concerns, questions, feedback, anything really concerning the show to tvfeedback@lakeshorepublicmedia.org. You can also reach us on Twitter @Lakeshore Report.
And we're always happy to hear what our viewers have to say. And we're not here without you because this is public television. We want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next week on Lakeshore Report.